Have you ever felt like your home was trying to flow, but something about it just could? Like there's beauty, sure. But the energy, it just sits, still, silent, heavy. Jessica Malone used to love her little entryway fountain. Elegant. Serene, a perfect Feng Shui touch, she thought, but months passed, and nothing flowed. Not her energy, not her mood, not even the conversations at dinner. It wasn't haunted, it wasn't cluttered, but somehow, it felt quiet in the wrong way. Like a house waiting for something, and not knowing what. That was the beginning of what she now calls the dry water trap. The slow, quiet mistake of trusting looks over movement, of decorating with stillness, and confusing faux flow with real kai. In Feng Shui, water isn't just for decoration. It's for money, luck, and the momentum of life, but only when it moves. In this episode, Jessica opens her home and her story to walk us through 5 water-related Feng Shui mistakes that are beautiful but dangerously fake. From entryway to bedroom, she shows how dry features quietly block abundance, energy, and emotional trust. If you've ever added a fountain, a bowl, or even a dry river rock thinking it looked peaceful, but later felt tired, heavy, or disconnected at home, this one's for you. If this kind of energy speaks to you, hit like, subscribe, or leave a comment below. It tells YouTube you're part of this quiet shift, and it tells us you're not just decorating, you're learning to listen. Jessica used to smile every time she passed by that little fountain by the front door. It had a stone base, a Buddha face, and a soft glow light she never turned on. She thought, looks spiritual, must be good Kai. But nothing moved. No water, no sound, just a still, dry statue waiting for a flow that never came. And over time, something subtle started happening. The house felt paused, like it was always about to start something, but didn't. Like a guest standing at the doorway, waiting for someone to say, "Come in." But nobody ever did. In Feng Shui, the entryway is the mouth of Kai, the place where all energy, opportunity, and money flow enter your home. When you put a water element here, it signals welcome. But if that water doesn't move, you're basically saying, "Hey, luck, come here, but don't go anywhere." That dry fountain Jessica loved so much. It was like posting a "Do Not Enter" sign in gold letters. Beautiful, but blocking. Jessica didn't realize it at first, but the energy at her front door started feeling polite, too polite. Like her house didn't know how to greet people anymore. Guests came in and barely made it past the hallway. Deliveries piled up at the threshold, and even Brian started using the back door more often. There was no hostility, but there was no invitation either. Just that weird feeling of a welcome sign that didn't mean it. Imagine inviting people over, and when they arrive, you just stand there, smile frozen, hands folded, no hug. No come in, no motion. That was the fountain, a gesture that looked generous, but gave nothing, not even a drop. And when you do that long enough, even good luck gets uncomfortable. It stands at the door, then walks away. Jessica didn't figure this out from a book. It came from her aunt, a retired acupuncturist, who walked in one day, looked at the fountain and said, "Sweetie, this thing makes your house hold its breath." That night, Jessica looked it up. And sure enough, Feng Shui masters warn about dead water at entry points. It symbolizes blocked intentions, paused flow, and stagnant Kai. It's the equivalent of putting your ambitions in a jar and screwing the lid shut. Jessica didn't toss the fountain. She gave it to a friend who wanted it for a photo shoot. Then she replaced it with a small, moving tabletop water feature, battery-powered, gentle flow. She placed a round mirror behind it to reflect movement, and added a small live plant to hold fresh Kai near the doorway. Within days, things shifted. Brian used the front door again. Deliveries got picked up faster. And Jessica landed a new client through a surprise referral. She didn't chant. She didn't burn sage. She just let the flow flow. Her neighbor saw the new setup and said, "Ooh, fancy fountain, Feng Shui." Jessica just laughed. Nope, it just actually works now. It was meant to feel zen. A dry stream bed made of soft stones, a few driftwood branches, and a ceramic crane standing at one end. Jessica placed it under the living room window next to the sofa. She thought it would bring calm, a sense of still nature indoors. But it didn't feel calm. It felt oddly paused. The space didn't invite conversation anymore. It just sat there, waiting for someone to notice how pretty it looked, instead of helping people connect. And one day, halfway through dinner, Brian looked up and said, "Why does this room feel like a waiting room now?" In Feng Shui, a living room is where relationships flow, conversations, family energy, shared laughter. It needs movement. Vibration, even quiet has to breathe. But that dry stream, it symbolized a flow that used to exist but dried up. It whispered the energy of something once moved here, but not anymore. Instead of creating warmth, it introduced a quiet disconnect. In Feng Shui, fake water features with zero motion in social spaces blocked social kai. People don't argue. They just stop feeling like talking. Jessica started noticing it slowly. Brian would spend more time scrolling on his phone. Her teenage niece barely looked up when visiting. Even their dog stopped curling up in the corner where it used to nap. The room wasn't broken, but it was emotionally offline, like a text thread where everyone left it on read. Jessica didn't blame the decor at first, until she remembered that feeling she used to get in her parents' house, where the living room had no music, no books, no life, just perfect cushions, and no one stayed long. Think of a stream bed with no water, not a river, just rocks, dry and still. That's what the room became, a space where connection used to flow. But now nothing moved. It looked peaceful, sure, but it felt like talking into a vacuum. Words went out, but nothing came back. This time, it was her therapist who pointed it out during a Zoom call. Jessica had mentioned feeling distant from Brian lately, and the therapist gently asked, "What's around your couch? Anything that invites stillness too hard?" That night, Jessica Googled Feng Shui plus dry stream decor and found an old blog from a Feng Shui teacher in Oregon. It said, "When you simulate water but remove its motion, you create a silent grief. It reminds the body of connection that's no longer active." Jessica didn't throw it all away. She kept the stones, but placed them around a new tabletop fountain she set up on a side table. She added a small air plant and a round mirror tray beneath to reflect motion. And just for fun, she added soft chimes near the window to bring subtle movement into the space. It didn't become noisy, but it stopped being silent. Now, the living room feels like someone saying, "Hey, you wanna sit for a minute?" And people do. They talk again, they laugh again. Even the dog came back. Brian's new nickname for the room? The social stream. He says it sounds ridiculous, but he hasn't brought his phone to the couch in weeks. And honestly, that feels like a win. Jessica bought it during a weekend market run. A circular, stone-shaped bowl with a carved dip in the middle. Meant to hold water, sand, maybe a floating flower or two. The seller called it a meditation bowl. Jessica loved the idea, but when she got home, she placed it on her desk, left it empty, and told herself, "I'll figure out what to put in it later." 6 months later, it was still empty, still waiting, still reminding her of nothing. And that's what started to feel wrong, like something in her work life had paused, but never got named. In Feng Shui, bowls represent containment, a place to hold energy, emotions, ideas. But when the bowl is dry, especially in a workspace, It creates a symbol of unfilled intention. It's not peaceful, it's pressure. It's potential with no outlet. The kind that slowly clogs creative Kai and makes money energy feel like it's waiting for permission. And that's exactly how her office began to feel. Projects started, then stalled. Emails drafted, never sent, ideas, but no action. Jessica called it the pretty paperweight. But deep down, it gave her that nagging feeling, like she was constantly on the verge of starting something important, but couldn't. She would sit down to write proposals and find herself checking the fridge. She'd map out new client offers, but get caught up in Canva fonts for 3 hours. She wasn't lazy. She was emotionally gridlocked. That little bowl wasn't a Decor piece. It was a mirror of her internal holding pattern. Think of a dry bowl on your desk like a gas tank that's always empty. You see it, you know it's supposed to hold something, but you keep walking past it thinking, I'll fill it soon. And you never do, so your ideas, they don't go anywhere, because the visual cue around you is one of incomplete energy. It's like your desk is saying, we're not quite ready yet, even when you are. Jessica didn't realize the problem until a coworker on Zoom asked, "Hey, is that bowl behind you a candle holder or something?" That was the first time she looked at it in months. She Googled empty bowls Feng Shui meaning. And read this: a dry vessel in a creative space signals emotional dehydration. It suggests waiting, not welcoming. That hit hard, because deep down she knew her office had stopped feeling inviting, and her work had started feeling dehydrated too. The next Saturday, Jessica finally filled the bowl, not just with water, but with intention. She placed a floating tea light inside, a few drops of rosemary oil, and 3 tiny pebbles from a beach trip with Brian. Then she moved it to the back left corner of the desk, her wealth corner, Feng Shui wise. She lit the candle each morning before starting work, let it burn while writing, and dumped plus refreshed the water every Sunday. The space shifted, but more than that, she shifted. The bowl was no longer waiting. It was now a place where flow happened. Now when friends come over, they point at the bowl and say, "That's cute, what is it?" Jessica just smiles and goes, "That's my don't mess with my focus bowl." And somehow it works. Jessica and Brian bought it on a whim. It was on sale at the nursery. A gorgeous stone garden fountain with copper edges and a promise of peace. They got it home, placed it right near the back patio, and said, "We'll set it up this weekend." 3 months later, still in the same spot. No pump, no water, no plug, just sitting there, like a dream that never got built, like an idea someone forgot to say yes to. In Feng Shui, unfinished elements become frozen intentions. They hold space in the energy field, but don't offer flow. They're like a faucet installed but never turned on. So water Kai pools behind it, waiting until it gets heavy. That outdoor fountain, it wasn't neutral. It was draining Jessica's Kai of follow-through, turning "we should" into "we didn't." Over and over again, Jessica started noticing she was avoiding the patio. She'd step outside, glance at the fountain, and feel that tiny spark of guilt, that "I was gonna" feeling. Brian mentioned it too. "We always talk about doing stuff back here, but it just kinda sits, huh?" And she realized it wasn't about the fountain. It was about the invisible pressure of unkept intentions, cluttering the space with silence. Imagine leaving a gift on someone's doorstep and never ringing the bell. That's what the fountain became. A gesture without motion, a flow that never started, a kind of spiritual ghost of good plans. And in Feng Shui, those ghosts don't haunt. They stall. Jessica talked about it during a book club night. They were reading a self-help book, and one of the prompts said, What's one thing in your space that you meant to activate but did? She answered honestly. The garden fountain, still bone dry. One of her friends, who casually studies Feng Shui, smiled and said, Girl, that's a Kai leak. A big one. It's your house thinking the movie never started. They all laughed, but Jessica knew it was true. The next weekend, she and Brian set it up. Simple fix, a $20 pump from the hardware store, a nearby extension cord, and a few smooth river rocks from their last road.